Hello, is Miida or Miida?
It's Miida. Yes.
Miida.
Nice meeting
Okay,
you.
I wanted to get that right. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, thank you for joining me. And I watched your wonderful movie the other night. Eureka is what it's called, right?
Yes.
Yes. So, and I also checked out your kind of press page, which was so wonderfully done, so concise.
Thank you.
I got a very good feel for it, but I have some additional questions and wanted to kind of get your thoughts and get your character as the background of how this came to be. So I know you're inspired by your own family, you know, uh, events and situation to that brought into the character in that movie, but tell me more about what compelled you to embark on this big production for this very powerful film.
Yeah, thank you. So, for the main part, it's the story that really inspired me. I remember I was traveling. I grew up in China and I went to high school in the Midwest. I went to high school in Michigan. And I was very interested in the history of Michigan and how the mining industry blossomed and all these different immigrants came to United States to work on these copper farms mostly up there in the Upper Peninsula. And I was from there. I was just curious, like where what the Chinese immigrants were back then, because that was obviously not mainly where Chinese immigrants went to, and then it was mostly in the Northern California as well as Southern California that the Chinese immigrants settled. And as I was just more and more researching just that part of the history, I was more drawn to me that just like there was such a forgotten part of history where how the Chinese immigrants survived as well as the women there, and it really struck a chord with me um because of like how the pressure how the power of oppression these Chinese women back then were both they face oppression both because of their gender as well as their race. And it's a place, the American West, even though it was a great promise for fortune, um, it was this place that they had no place, really had no place to be, whether inside their profession as a brothel, indentured prostitute, or outside, which is the kind of what I was trying to explore. Just like, where do you belong in this world where either side of the wall was equally dark and oppressive, and
That's so sad, right, Mita? I really felt for the character in there, and and also the complex relationship she's had with her brothel mother, who herself was a prostitute, right? So there was
yeah,
a lot of complexity, and I think you really captured that so powerfully, because I certainly didn't end watching that feeling that the brothel mom was the villain. I really felt a complexity in her story as well,
yeah,
which
that's
is why she herself had the empathy to go into the cage with her that eventually led to her demise. Um, tell me a little bit though. I really do want to explore the historical aspect of it. I really like that you chose Eureka, because I think Eureka, it's funny because today it's a very it's a small city. It's not anything. It's not like San Francisco or Los Angeles, but I
Mhm.
think and you should probably know this better than me. I know that that was a major port back in the 1800s, and that was where a lot of the Chinese workers were landed, right, to work on the railroads. Am I correct in that?
They mostly landed in San Francisco and then they kind of radiate from there.
Okay.
And I think the in Eureka in particular, it was the railroads. They traveled there through the railroads. But I think the San Francisco was the main port of entry, especially.
Okay.
Uh,
But a lot of the activities for the actual railroad workers were centered northern. Am I correct
yes,
on that?
yeah. and all over the Sierra Nevadas.
And you touched upon something very interesting. I did not realize you were kind of raised in the Upper Peninsula of
Oh,
Michigan, which
not
is where.
raised. Yeah, it's a northern Michigan, but the Upper Peninsula was interesting to me in particular.
Oh,
Because it's
okay.
more like a more forgotten place. But yeah, I spent 4 years of my high school years in northern Michigan.
Yeah, and you had mentioned copper. So copper was, a major, I guess, industry up there, and
Yeah, copper, a bunch of other, there's also iron and but the tip of the Upper Peninsula that was mostly the copper part, and it was, yeah, but it was a major industry there, copper, iron. It
and
used to
that
be.
led you to the genesis of where that, of that, where that came from and where that went, and that's how what led you to focus specifically on this Northern California.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
mhm.
a bit of a journey how I travel. It was just at first it was just very genuinely interested in the history, um, and then I like the knowing about just how often the immigrants came for the mining industry made me start want to dig more into what about the people from the country I grew up in, how did they travel here, where did they go, like that led me to research in other parts of yeah, where the Chinese immigrants settled.
Yeah, that's one really great work that you did. And I'm the president of Chinese American Citizens Alliance, where we promote the heritage of Chinese American history, especially the railroad workers. And we
Mm.
fought for more recognition on what exactly were the ramifications of the Chinese Exclusion Act, which is
Yeah.
why I was so attracted to what you did. And I thought you just captured it so perfectly in your short. But I was
Yeah.
thinking the whole time, I said, this is a powerful short. What is your plan? Are you going to build this out into a feature film? Because I would be so excited to watch that.
That is definitely something I've been planning on doing and thinking about. Um it is certainly a very it's a very dark part of the history, as well as it's got a lot of stories that I would love to tell. Except the difficulty for these stories is just the historical documents were never that complete, because it was I forgot what exactly the reason. Because a lot of it was destroyed in the San Francisco fire,
Yes.
and then also it was a lot of these people have to work undocumented, especially the women, because they were after the exclusion act, it was harder to travel here, and there were other ways to claim that someone was just someone's wife, but in fact they weren't, to so that they can bring them here, given the previous visa. Um, but yeah, so it was very hard to get to that historical authenticity place, and I did take certain liberties in making the short as well. So that's one thing I'm struggling with, just like how can I tell a story that's relevant and authentic emotionally while
Mhm.
still having that historical root. And I don't think like something that like I don't think like the feature version of this is a historical drama. I think there will be more. I need to take more liberty in the fantasy elements
Mm.
and to fictionalize a history while still keeping the political power struggle, the power relationships. That part is what needs to be authentic, and then the rest. I think I need to. The landscape needs to be different, even if it's still set in the period place. And yeah, I'm still working through it, and but that is definitely one of my main goals for
Oh,
my.
that is so exciting. Please keep us posted. And I may be able to help you with some of those that research, because our
Mm.
organization does a
That's
lot of
awesome.
that. Yeah, we've
Yeah,
existed since 1896.
that's all.
So, with the sole purpose of basically collecting historical accounts and making sure that we can tell our story. So for filmmakers like you, who are so brave and so talented to produce something like you just did, so I am such a fan, Miida. I just have to
Thank
tell
you.
you.
Thank you, Mark.
But I want to delve in a little bit on the emotional aspects. I know you had mentioned that just now, because I felt that your film really captured a very unique relationship between the brothel madam and, you know, the young girl who was enslaved in that world. And you know, the house that it took place in just felt was a perfect setting, and really focus on kind of the emotions and the dynamic of the two.
Mm.
I know that in your press page, you had mentioned that you really channeled a lot of your personal, you know, struggles in your own life, to create that composite in those characters. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what you had to dig deep into to get that to build out those characters?
Of course, yeah. So the main root came from this kind of desire for rebellion against my mother. That's like that relationship has been still unfortunately ongoing between me and my mom. Um, and uh, and it's frustrating to a certain extent because I really appreciate what she sets out to do, what kind of person she wants me to become, and she raised me in a way that wants me to appreciate Chinese culture, and but at the same time, you know, I feel that need for a self-expression as well as try. I think there is a need in me that's always in me. It's just trying to um create things that's uniquely me without associations with others, without other kind of inherited identities. You know, like how, like especially in this much more globalized world, where do I fit in, and how, why am I different from anyone else? That was something that's always in my struggle as an artist, and that need to kind of put aside what I inherited from in order to um in order to find something new and say something new is that emotionally is something that I always am in touch with. And that's why, like this need to become your own person without the
Mhm.
burden, without the without the burden and um yeah, without the burden of history, without the burden of your inherited circumstances, is something I explore in all of my work, I would say. How do you identify yourself? How do you what it means to destroy who you used to be and become a new person? That's something I still struggle with in my own
I
personal
think
life.
everyone does, right? I mean, to be fair, I think, especially, I mean, you've touched upon a lot of kind of the identity issues of Asian Americans, of assimilating into this culture, which is something that our Chinese culture does kind of enforce, right? It's, oh, let's assimilate, but at the same time, we
Uh,
can't fully, because we are in America.
mm,
And so there is that kind of like push and pull and that dichotomy. And you know, with a desire to achieve in school and all of that, and
mm,
academically, and move up in society, those dynamics
uh,
come into play as well. So, you know, I think you really touch upon something great, and, you know, bring that modern struggle into the period piece that you created. So I, you know, really great, great expression of that. So yeah, there's a lot of you in the little girl, in the girl's character, that that felt the need to break from those chains. What do you think, you know, the moment she does, what was the moment? I mean, there, that the one thing I couldn't really figure out was what was her breaking point?
her breaking point was the realization that this had happened before, that this she's been lied to, and that the lie that she's been fed has been in a similar form, and there's
Hmm.
always this promise. It's the lie has always been in the form of this promise, and then at that very moment, that kind of flashback to the past, that it
Mm.
reminds her that this is just another illusion, and she needs to break that cycle, the cycle of Yeah, that cycle of this
Mhm.
the cycle of abuse in that sense.
Yeah, but what was scary, and I'm sure what was weighing on her mind too, was, especially when that guy, the white man came in and basically was like, "Hey, you guys got to get out of here." And the brothel mom used that to be, to further keep her in the chains.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that is mhm. Yeah, that's the
well,
most interesting part to me. It is like how when there is the force of the other, when there's an
yes,
extra,
it's
and then it's
scarier out there than the current, and that is why a lot of people stay in domestic violence and the
right,
battered wife syndrome, Stockholm
right,
syndrome.
exactly. And also I find it interesting. That's I mean this is the more fictional part where the Long Long, the main protagonist, takes also knows what hurts um the Madam
Mhm.
character, and then decides to use that to even though she does not might not know the significance of what it means that all Chinese have to go. She uses that as a way to rebel against her, and even if the weight of the words might also carry on to her as well, but she does not know, and that naivety and as well as um the irony in it is something that I was really drawn to.
Yeah. And then also that opportunity that she was given to leave. There was one point when the door was wide open and brothel mom said, "Please be my guest, leave."
Yeah,
And she couldn't take it because what was outside was way scarier than.
uh, and she
Mhm.
wanted it to. She's doing it also to. I wouldn't say for she's trying to use that act of hurting the madam in order for the madam to 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 um to care for her, for the extra attention, for the extra um
Mhm.
yeah, so that she could recognize how hurt she has been just being in here, being in the brothel. um it's a part of her strategy. Even that's also the reason why she couldn't leave, because her real intent at that moment wasn't leaving.
Yes. She wanted attention is what that was.
Mhm. It was a means
Yeah.
to another end. Yeah.
Mhm. You write something very powerful in your director statements. I've always wanted to make a film about what it means to destroy who you are in order to become something new. That is a very powerful statement. I can relate to it, but I don't want to tell you how I how I interpret it. I want to hear it from you, what that destroying is, and to what extent we destroy that old identity to create the new one, and how that manifested in our main character in Eureka.
Yeah, it is about going against someone that might have cared and loved you. In this case, it's more the madam who really does take care of these prostitutes, perhaps not in the best way that she could, but at least she shelters them from the outside forces. And 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 in order to go against her, that is in the film, in the most literal sense, that is what it means for her, what she has to overcome in order to just what she has to destroy, that the the institution that she is that she belongs to, the institution that oppresses her. um but in my own life, it's more so just, I don't know, there's always a sense of being Chinese and the duty to the parents, to the elders, and to,
Mhm.
in a sense, like what kind, especially as an artist, like what kind of art do you make? And then in a sense there is a sense of like carrying the duty of carrying on the Chinese culture in some ways. And I personally don't feel any, I feel it more as a burden to who I am as an artist than than um than something I actually feel for. But at the same time, there's also this kind of I'm a very nostalgic person, and I am very deeply affected by how history shapes how history shapes who we are, how the history shapes who I am, how I see the rest of the world, how I evaluate the rest of the art that I'm drawn to. And so it's that's the tension, it's the tension of figuring out how much all the things I'm passionate about, how much of it is inherited and how much of it is truly 100% me, and trying to figure out what it means for me to figure out what my decisions are rooted, and is a very interesting tension that I am personally trying to figure out in my life, as well as capturing it in my work. So I guess that's a kind of long-winded way of answering your question.
No, that brings up a lot of interesting things. I mean, really, I find it almost like dichotomous, and it's like I see, and it's fascinating to me because I like that. That shows that you're taking us on your journey of self-discovery, right? And one of those things is, you did say in your director's statement about, kind of rebelling against the Chineseness in you. And that's very, very powerful. I think every Asian American, every Chinese American kind of deals with that on some level, being in America. But you did choose to do this great movie that's really a tribute to the Chinese culture.
Yeah, so that is a conflict. I do want to capture that, like, it's like I'm very like, here's the thing, I'm drawn to the Chinese culture, but at the same time I don't want to feel necessarily identified with, that is, I guess, the core conflict I struggle with. It's like I grew up playing, in my director's statement I wrote, I grew up playing the Chinese instrument. I enjoy the music, I just don't enjoy the act of playing as this being me as someone.
You don't want to be typecast, is what I'm hearing. You don't want that to be the be all end all of who you are, because you're much more than that.
It's a sense of like the kind of like essentialist thinking in the personhood, like who you are, like, and like, yeah, it's something I really struggle with. In one sense, there's like like how much is a certain type of art like essential to the community that practice it, like if a person from a different community who wants to make art like that, it's very easily perceived as cultural appropriation in the contemporary world. But to what extent does that art necessarily like belong to a certain culture? Like that's a connection that I as an artist that I feel I don't want to be forced upon with.
But you are the better person to tell that story.
That is the struggle, right? That is the struggle. I'm like, other people will be more likely to see that I'm more, say, fit, or I should be the person to tell these stories. And that's the conflict. Like I do want to tell these stories, but I don't want to be seen.
And I'm glad you did, because
Thank you.
It's so important. Better you than anyone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, there goes duty and love, right? But I think over time you'll grow to love this. I'm sure you love this piece of work.
I do. I'm very proud of it. Yes.
Yeah, and you should be, because it's just everything down to the lighting, the cinematography, just everything that was it was put together very well and conveyed in a short 14 minutes. A very powerful historical story that is long forgotten. So no, I hope that you in your future work, speaking of, I wanted to transition it to that. Miida, what are your next projects, and what can we expect from you in the future?
Well, so main part I've been lately, the recent work, I'm still exploring this question of like what I brought up, the kind of essentialist thinking, like how much are we identified because our skin color, because our physical body, how much are we identified with that? That's a topic that always fascinates me. And as I'm going through my gender transitioning, I'm also very fascinated by just like how essential the essentialist nature of how we understand ourselves through that lens, through the body, and how do we, like, in this very commonsensical dualist picture of body and soul, how do we see our body separate from our soul? Like, we can see our body having all these innate these attributes because of how we look, how we were born, and then how do we separate that from how we, what's the truly part of ourselves that we did not inherit. This is still the kind of thing that's very interesting, like what we inherit and who we decide we are. How can we parse the two together? So I've been
nature versus nurture, right?
Yeah, and in the nurture part, is there that kind of, can we get there? Can we get to that true besides nature and nurture? Because nurture to me is like the nature perhaps is more related to the body part, and the nurture is perhaps more related to the memories, the teaching, the things that we've been passed upon. But what more is there besides the memory and the body, And so the next work I've been working on is this horror mystery about a young boy who's going through a gender identity crisis to find that a close buddy of his is an alien wearing human skin, and then eventually the story in the end is that everyone in this world is alien wearing human skin, and the little alien inside all of us are the same, but the skins are different. That's the kind of picture I want to introduce to this
interesting
universe, where
kind of bringing your own personal story of transition into that. I like that. I think that's going to be a very interesting watch and very relevant. A lot of people, I would be definitely interested in watching that. So are you in the writing phase right now for that project, or do you have anything else in the pipeline that aside from Eureka, or is it right now all Eureka?
I moved, like, Eureka is in the festival circuit, and I've moved on, and I was mostly working on a feature project called Oblivion. It's about this, like, my background, my undergraduate background was in philosophy, so I'm very drawn to all these like the idea of I love thought experiments, and for that project it's mostly about just like, what if everyone one day has a collective amnesia, and then we forget about everything. All social conventions are lost, as well as hate and love. So if we start anew, what would the world be like? That was a project dealing with that. Just like, it's also about just like, yeah, suppose we all forget about the conceptions and expectations of identities. What would the rest of the world, how do we interact with each other? How do we see each other without that kind of, again, that kind of essentialist identity picture? But that's been written, and I'm just like slowly putting it out there. I don't foresee that being made very immediately, but so yeah, mostly writing, and for this horror mystery, I'm just still in the development phase.
That's great. And then, Miida, let's get to your personal stuff. Are you based in Southern California?
Yeah, I'm based in LA.
In LA. Okay, great. And I know you're probably going to be touring a little bit to get Eureka out in the film festivals and the different. So how has that been? Has that been received positively with different audiences around the country?
Yeah, I'm very excited. And next month, actually this month, gosh, it's October already. I'm going to the East Coast. There will be it's shown at a film festival called Sing Film Festival in Rhode Island, and Tallgrass Film Festival in Wichita, Kansas. That one I'm really excited about. I've never been to Kansas. And
it'll be cold this time of year.
What's that?
Yeah, it'll be cooler this time of year. I think the temperatures are dropping, so pack your sweaters.
Yeah, I was in New York during the summer. It was unpleasant.
Oh gosh. Oh, I lived in New York for 5 years, and I worked on Wall Street and had to sweat in my suit just getting to work because it's so humid. That's what I love about being out here, right? We have dry heat.
I did my undergrad in New York City, and it was I definitely prefer the lifestyle here. It's just having a car, having that kind of peace of mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is where it's at as far as getting your work out there, and I'm just excited to see where your talent goes over the years. So
Thank you.
stay in touch with us. Um, before we leave, do you have anything else you want to tell the Hollywood Times audience about, your work, this movie? The floor is yours.
I'm not good at this. I don't know. What do you suggest? What do people say usually? What?
Oh, I think I pulled most of it out of you from, what you're doing on a personal level with your next projects, as well as the movie features. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything, but I think we kind of covered the gamut here.
Well, I'm
And
making a surrealist thriller short about people without faces. Maybe that's one thing. Stay tuned.
Oh, I like that. Surreal. Okay. So you like that, huh? You like kind of the alternate fantastical universes.
Yeah,
I felt a little bit of that here in Eureka.
Yeah, I really enjoy that kind of high concept stories where it's like it plays with certain kind of reality. It plays with the reality of the world and takes one thing, like alters one or two things from our the base reality of it. And that's where I'm trying to take the Eureka to the feature version of it. Like that's I'm definitely, I enjoy stories that makes us think, provokes us with its setting. And so yeah, by and large, that's
super excited for that. I that was my biggest question for you today is, will we be able to expect a feature length version of this? And it sounds like that's a resounding yes. So we're super excited. And I really like your ideas and the direction you're going on that too, because I think there's so many elements to explore that I felt that short was really such a great teaser, like a prolonged trailer. But now you just want to know more. You want to know, what is that interaction between the brothel and the outside world? Because I think Long Long's character will be so much, it will give her fear so much more tangibility to the audience if we knew that aspect of it as well. Yeah. So I'm super excited. Keep us in, you have my phone number and my email. Stay in touch. If you have any press releases ever, feel free to send it to me, and I want to do my best to cover you and this journey that you're on. So
thank you so much, Marc. It means a lot to me. It's nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you as well. And you have a wonderful day, Miida. We'll post this very shortly.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Hi, who is this?
This is Alan.
Hi, Alan. Sorry, I was in a meeting, but now I can talk. What's